Well, this is the Dove Lady, and I am once more making a video. And this one is for string theorists and a few people that I will mention in the telling of this. So I will begin. Now I take pictures of light, and light shows up in the form of an orb, and the orb can take many shapes. Mostly the ones you'll see I show you today are going to be round ones. And I took some a few days ago that seemed to have strings coming out of holes. And this is one of them. I can't get my mouse to go in and move it for me. Oh, come on. There it is. Next. I could believe this, that there is such a thing as string theory, just by looking at these tubes that I see in the orb pictures I take. Just by appearance, it seems it could actually be so. Strings coming out of black holes, or you could call them tubes. Sometimes there are several strings coming and going from black holes. There's another, and I'm just going to show you a few. Maybe the white one is in these holes is just the string coming through at that moment. And the dark ones, of course, would be empty for that particular time. Strings and many other things I see in these orbs. So you could call the holes tunnels. And sometimes the strings are on the surface. And see, here's some tunnels with, looks like a string coming through. So many things about this world of motion we simply don't know. But we can have some fun going through the tunnels when they are all tunnels of love. Now I want to talk about this occurrence of the patch. It started showing up, and it would kind of move around while I was moving around looking at different things I wanted to film. It would just come right into view and kind of get in my way. It moves about when I'm filming, often getting in my way of filming something else. It just sort of moved along with me for several days. It was often a dark color, but this depended on my closeness to the light source. It would often take on the colors of what it seemed to pass over. I always thought the objects I filmed were on different levels and not on the same level, that they would interfere with one another. But then I saw the action of this yellow ray color. See it at the top? The yellow is coming into the patch. But this day, it seemed that they were on the same level, and the yellow colors seemed to punch into the patch. So I thought, well, that's the first time I've seen anything interfering. You know, kind of like a punch. Well, I'll punch you right in the gut. But then the patch returned to its original shape, seemingly unaffected. I continued to see it when filming light for a couple of days. I did not mind that it often came into my view, but I knew soon it would be gone, and sure enough, it is gone now, at least until the next time. Now, I was watching a video with this man named John Hagelin, who is a quantum physicist. He says rather humorously, the universe percolates rubber bands. Now, you'd have to hear him to know why he says that. But I could believe that. Look at all these little circles and concentric circles around them. They're just, I see the little rubber bands. They come in many colors and many sizes. I see them with the naked eye and can film them as well. They are like ripples in water intersecting each other. Bubbles, bubbles everywhere. cosmic ray streaked through it. I think that might be what that is, a yellow cosmic ray streaking right through some of the views I get. The colors morph, and there is much activity in this realm. I think this to be the construct of consciousness, and I believe that this is massless. We live surrounded by this world of color. Now it can be seen. I don't know if a mathematical understanding can be made of it. It communicated with me by means of putting words into a file in my Google Drive. The Power of Love was the name of the file. I had entitled it that way, but had no content in it. I was planning on someday writing about the power of love. But on this particular day, I looked at that file and there were words. So I'm going to read them to you, because it was a message to me. And I don't want to sound boastful, but I was really proud to hear from Spirit this way with words, printed words on a page, because that's how I get most everything. That I read a lot of books, and I see printed words kind of resonate with me. So there they were that day, and I will read it to you now. I want to say right away that I'm willing to get into this only because you have expressed an interest in doing it. I have no agenda but love for you and for all of that which is created. I am not a being who has time for taking little trips of fantasy into other realms for the fun of it. I am serious, and I wish that to be known. I have little concern for those who believe not, nor for those who wish to start a new religion of me. I will shut down quickly if I see that occurring. And then it addressed me by name. Grace, you are a very good person, and you do not even know it yet. I see you judge yourself as though you were not any good, only maybe just a little bit good. I am telling you that we need more like you, and if we can accomplish this, all will be healed that is going wrong. I am going to give you a letter of a sort in which you can address those scientists who would say that the orbs you take pictures of are nothing more than some kind of easily explained phenomena. I am going to ask them to consider how that you are able to see light in the process of bonding itself into the curved line balls. What the curved line balls is a process in which matter is being put together. It will manifest for you in due time. It will be all that you want it to be. If you are not sure what you want, it knows for you that you want something that you have asked for many times. It is that which you have asked for that is both silver and gold and fruit. It will be accomplished in time, and you will have it for evidence to use it for an example. It will be good to see, for you doubt a lot, and we want you to cease from doubting. I know that is hard to do, but with the help we will provide, you will be able to do it. To erase all doubt is always the hardest kind of thing for people to do. It requires one to deny what is, and to relax and know and appreciate. It is just that for us to begin to give you the words that you seem to want is not easy for us, because we don't know what you want to understand. Okay, about time. It is a construct as you know it to be, and it is used by God, or all that is, as a way of playing out for those parts of himself all the dramas in which you are presented with themes to test and serve to grow you into a better person. It is going to be constructed a little differently from a point in time which is fast approaching. It will be no longer a long wait until what you believe to be true comes into existence. It is already working that way for many to a certain degree. It will increase, and you will walk in such a state of grace that you will find life to be so pleasant that you are not ever dissatisfied. And thus the message ended, leaving me with bated breath to hear more. And to this present day that I'm speaking to you now, I haven't heard more, except maybe I think some words were put into an orb, like I put words into orbs that I found one day. but not the letter that goes to the scientists. And I will tell you that the thing that I wanted that was gold and silver and fruit was something I had never told anyone about, because it was just amusing in my mind of, well, if I could create out of the thin air, I would create a large platter of silver and have it full of gold, apples made of pure gold. And that's what I wanted. And something was hearing my thoughts because I got this message. And now I feel like it actually could be accomplished. And I'm practice visualizing getting that and using it as an example to help people learn how to believe for something. Anyway, I found this statement in a metaphysical book called The Return of the Dove by Margaret Storm. And she says, during the Aquarian age, the violet fire of the mighty seventh ray will constantly surge up and through the earth, washing over every single atom that makes up the globe. Walter Russell explained that all we see is the illusion, which is motion. So it is, after all, our illusion that we want to learn how to create in a more perfect world. And he says this, stillness never can be motion or become motion, but it can appear to be. Motion merely seems, but stillness always is. The universal equilibrium can never be either other than its own balance, but it can seem to be. The illusion, which is motion, springs from stillness and returns to stillness. This is a universe of rest. There is naught but rest in the universe. I read several of Walter Russell's books on my channel. If you want to look into that, you can hear me read several of his books. Now, another thing Margaret Storm said was, it is correct to say that before we can raise the vibrations of our atoms to the ascension frequency, we must let go of all our pet peeves. The only way to redeem a single clogged atom is to visualize the violet fire sweeping through it like a blowtorch, transmuting and releasing all misqualified energy within the atom and allowing it to be sent back to the sun for rejuvenation. We must raise the vibration of our physical atoms which compose our body. It is with love that we can raise our vibration. If there is any discord shown toward matter, toward a physical atom, it is impossible to raise the vibration in a natural way. We must lovingly call forth the God substance, which forms the nucleus of the atom, inviting it to rise and return to the source. The atoms thus loved will open like budding flowers, freeing the imprisoned light in the center of the atom, a light which has gained in brilliance because of its service to the planet. Modern scientists advocate the use of brute force to compel the atoms today, but that lowers the vibrations of the atoms. The violet ray, the seventh ray, is also known as the ray of white magic because of its instantaneous alchemical action of transmutation. Now, the next few words are from yet another author, Ken Carey, in his book called The Starseed Transmissions. Also read that one on my channel if you care to find it and listen to me read it. This is just a small portion of it. As I search your symbol storage, oh, by the way, this is an intelligence speaking to him in the words of that one. And I'll start again now. As I search your symbol storage systems for a word with which to express something of the reality in which you exist, as one with your Creator, I come across the American Indian word, Nagwal. It is a term which you understand to mean everything that cannot be named. This is a good word for the region of being, the region of unity. I will use this word for a moment to emphasize a point. In the pre-fall state of awareness, you existed in the Nogwal, the all, the everything, the nothing, the primal void, where all exist in a state of potential. This is the creator that surrounds creation like the sea surrounds a fish. Out of this Nogwal, you are called many times to dwell for the space of a relationship in its opposite, the tonal. The tonal is everything that can be named. It is the imaginary world of God in which all apparent differences exist. It is the playground of what is. The tonal draws all of its substance from the Nogwal. It cannot exist apart from the Nogwal. While the Nogwal is a dynamic yet steady state of rest, the tonal, or manifest physical universe, is continuously flashing on and off. This oscillation occurs in all things manifest, from the smallest subatomic particle to the greatest galaxy. All of us, angels, humans, anything that can be named, are only in form one half of the time. The other half of the time we exist in the totality of being. This totality of being that we have been calling the Nogwal has also been called God the Father. It is the life of God the Father that animates all creation. It is this reality that all healthy creatures oscillate back and forth to and exist in half the time. In this reality, we do not exist in time or space, for we can name these. They are both features of the manifest universe. From this spaceless, timeless state, we derive all energy, blessing, and nourishment. This always holds true even if you are in the fallen condition. The difference is that in the fallen state, you are not aware of this process and therefore unable to participate in it consciously. By forfeiting your ability to oscillate in consciousness between the two realities in which you dwell, you are restricted to an awareness of just the tonal, just the material, conceptual world. You still receive your nourishment from the light of the Nogwal, but no longer directly, only through animals, plants, and minerals. You are unconscious of being and conscious only of form. How did you lose the ability to shift your awareness from deity to identity, from form to metaform? How did you lose God consciousness? How did you fall into the illusion of separation? I will tell you, it was through a simple lack of faith. It was through a loss of confidence in the absolute perfection of the universal design. This was brought about by the entry of a single factor into your existence. Fear, the serpent in the garden, the devil in your history. Through a subtle process of reasoning, this being encouraged you to move into a pattern of activity that has come to be called original sin. It was a pattern of activity that you were never designed to move in. With a clever and subtle lie, you were convinced to not exactly stop trusting in God, but to stop trusting exclusively in God. The moment you did this, your consciousness began to shift from God-centeredness to self-centeredness, and for the first time you became more aware of your identity in form than in your identity in God. This shift of awareness was minimal at first, but enough to begin what was to become a long spiral downward through denser levels of energy bondage and restraint. For Satan, your tempter, is the materializing influence which is in its right place is responsible for the bonding of energy in the creation of matter. As you began to focus more and more upon your identity in form, you began thinking in terms of defending that form with unnecessary and cumbersome ego structures. It became harder for you to avoid identifying with your experience. You began to carry over past patterns of behavioral response into new relationships. This made you feel less effective in those relationships because you were no longer fully present, no longer using the fullness of your potential. You were beginning to build up around yourself energized thought, structures that imprisoned you. You were drawn by simple gravitational attraction to those realms of space where energy was in the process of being bonded, where matter was being created. Particles of physical substance began to gather along the magnetic lines of your thought structures, and you began to identify with denser and denser levels of physical expression. This process went on for a long while before you actually found yourself in any kind of physical garden. When you did, you had already fallen a long way from your original state of grace, but you were still functioning on a level of awareness far enough above and beyond your present condition to give rise to all the myths and legends of a physical paradise. The physical Garden of Eden lasted for many centuries on Earth time before the momentum of the materializing processes caused you to rely so much upon the physical senses that you became cut off from the direct nourishment of divine light. In reality, you have never been cut off from this nourishment, but as your sense of identity became almost exclusively wedded to your physical bodies, their growing density began demanding more and more of Earth's substance for their support. You finally reached a point where you could no longer meet the demands of your physical bodies without work. It is at this point that your chronicle state that you were driven from the garden. In truth, you were never driven from the garden. The garden is still there, surrounding you even now. Language is only capable of communicating on one level at a time, yet the fall was a simultaneous, multi-leveled occurrence. While you were clothing yourself with increasing layers of material identification, you were also becoming more and more fragmented within yourself. As you began to bring into your relationships a sense of identity based on previous relationships, you were not only lessening your own presence and effectiveness in current relationships, you were also creating separation within yourself. None of your past experiences were comprehensive enough to fully identify with it in the present moment. Yet you began to rely on them for your understanding and approach to the present moment. Thus, the whole process of the fall was accompanied by a corresponding fragmentation of your sense of identity, your very sense of self. By the time of the physical Garden of Eden, you were already perceiving yourself to be more than one. The sexual process came into play in order to produce physical projections within which these apparently separate entities you had split yourself into could take form. Even to this day, these apparently separate beings are but your own fragmented reflections. In the fallen state, you perceive them as separate and distinct. Yet despite all of this talk of a fall and original sin, you are not held prisoner by events that transpired in the dim reaches of your collective memory. You are not born into sin. You are born daily into the presence of God. Yet daily you reenact the original foolishness that is recorded in all of your ancient chronicles. Daily you commit original sin. Daily you eat of the forbidden fruit, and it is from moment to moment that you keep yourself imprisoned by allowing a dubious, rational thought process to come between you and your immediate sensing of God's will. This was the hesitation that led you to your initial fall from grace, and it is the same hesitation that keeps you now in a fallen state. There should rightly be no interval between the determination of the need to take action and the implementation of that action. This rational interference is what caused you to stumble in your primal dance of trust with God. You are now, in effect, sleeping under the influence of what could almost be seen as a spell, an illusion that prevents you from experiencing the clarity of perception that is your natural birthright. Our mission to this planet is to awaken you from sleep by whatever means necessary. Those were words by Ken Carey in his book entitled The Starseed Transmission. And I want to mention here that I think this that is happening, which is referred to as the Mandela effect, is benevolent. It is something that's designed to help us to wake up. And I think that's the way we need to see it and understand that we can have a part by watching what we feel and what our emotions are creating. We can have a part in making the changes that need to happen in our world, and there are many that really need to happen. But we're not going to make it happen by simply calling things like we see them, because that is the illusion. We're part of it, we're in it, but we have to learn how to talk in the illusion. And if we could learn how to talk, we could even affect the weather. If we could learn how to talk and feel and think, we could have a better world by what each and every single one of us can do all by ourselves. We can do it. You can get with others and do it as a group, and that makes it stronger. But even if you're just sitting alone in a nursing home and you think, well, there's nothing I can do, you can. You can think good thoughts. You can have encouraging thoughts and talk to others, and never concentrate on the darkness and say, oh, the darkness is so strong. Oh, the kids nowadays are so wicked. Oh, all the things we say, we are creating for them to continue to be that way when we keep talking about it. I know it's like, well, don't give us the news. Yeah, in a way, it's like, don't give us the news, because we're going to let our imagination run wild. We're not going to create good if we do that. If we continue down that path, I don't think anything good can happen, but I think we're going to turn it around and watch our thoughts and watch our feelings and be careful to use our words wisely and call everything good. The Bible says, rejoice in all things. Now, I don't believe all that the Bible says, but there are some very good jewels in that Bible. Rejoice in all things and love your enemy. And that might be the hardest one to do, but we certainly need to do it. Send love to those that you criticize, those that you consider the enemy. Send them love. See them as a God being, as you are. And that's the way that love conquers all. And I think it's going to begin manifesting for us a lot quicker than a lot of us think. We're going to bring things about. And I'm certainly looking forward to a silver platter with gold apples in it. I want 20 of them in it. And I don't think it's impossible. And maybe I sound foolish. I don't care. I don't really care if I sound foolish. I think we can bring things out of the thin air with our thoughts and our feelings corrected. I read a series of books by Baird Spalding called The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, in which these masters that Baird Spalding met were doing these things. They were bringing what they needed out of the etheric. I think that's where they brought it forth from, what we call the etheric. Anything they needed, they could manifest. And they could travel in the etheric. And they could walk through a fire or step on water and walk over the water. They could do all those things. They could multiply the bread. They could heal people. They could bring the dead back to life. They could do so many things. And as I read that book, I wanted to be like them. That's my goal.